This is the Living Fearless Today podcast, a show that helps men like you and me who are struggling to get unstuck and overcome fear to live confidently and courageously. I'm your host and transformation coach, Mike Forster, helping you create the change you want now. Join me as I interview men who've conquered their challenges and soared to success as they spill their secrets on how they live fearless today. Well, hello and welcome back, my friend. Man, this week I'm joined by Harvey Laguerre. So Harvey has gone through what many of us experience, where it's like, the challenges that our parents have in their own relationship, and then how that impacts us. And even as kids, that stuff can carry over into how we're thinking and acting, and the beliefs that we have that as we become adults can become the barriers that we face and work through, sometimes unconsciously. And so we're going to get into talking about that and just a whole myriad of things. Amazing thing is, Harvey's got two podcasts. So the first one is Love is Black. So he and his wife set that up. He started, sharing about where things are, and the experience and the confidence he gained from it then helped him to launch Men Are the Prize. And so I encourage you to go check out Men Are the Prize podcast. Listen to Harvey. If this stuff resonates, man, that's what it's all about, is hearing other men's voices and their journey that helps to encourage us in our day-to-day. Excited to get into the conversation with Harvey here. How are you doing today, Harvey?
I am well. Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited about this conversation. I love talking about men, and I happen to be one, so it works out. Yeah.
That's a great combination there, man. It's almost like I like talking about cars, and I have a lot of cars. I mean, some things go well together. That would be the combination there. Mm-hmm. Well, dude, Harvey, let's jump into, what does it look like for you as far as professionally today? What does life look like there?
So obviously we'll talk about where I've come from, what I've dealt with and such, but a lot of who I am now has a lot to do with where I was before and what I came from and what I dealt with. Now, because I've dealt with life, failed marriages, volatile home, low confidence, really making questionable decisions about my life, I'm at a place now where I can help men. I can coach them. I can talk to them, because I'm not just some guy who, I just went and took a course and now I'm a coach because I've got some certificate on my wall. If I do have a certificate on my wall, it's Harvey survived, and then it's this, and I can talk to you about it. So professionally, I'm a man who has gone through the fire. I've come out of it, and I coach men. And it was particularly Black men because we have a different experience. Life for us is different, and not everybody gets it. So I can talk to any man, but sometimes if it's going to be a man who looks like me, we can talk about our experience. I can listen. I can critique. I can make you look at yourself in the mirror, because not every problem is something that somebody else caused. Sometimes we're the problem. And sometimes it takes another man to say, dude, what are you doing? So I'm here helping men, coaching, talking to men every day, being a voice, being that shoulder to cry on. And that, when I do that, it just helps me personally. I feel better about helping men, because in essence, I'm helping myself from 25, 30 years ago. It's this constant, just kind of, I may be having a bad day, but so is the guy I'm talking to, and his day's better, and so is mine. Professionally, I'm here to help men through the struggle of being men.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the amazing thing, Harvey, is that it's like we can glean from what we've gone through and the journey of healing and transformation to be able to help somebody. So it's like, hey, this took me 10 years, 20 years, maybe 30 to get through. And by sharing, our experiences, it fast tracks somebody. It's not like, hey, you got to take the 10, 20, 30 years. It's like, no, here's the cheat code.
Yeah.
So
true.
Through.
So true. So true. So
yeah.
true.
And then the rest of the experiences don't have to come along with it either. The relationship or the low self-confidence, low self-worth. I mean, that stuff just gets eradicated so much faster, man. So I appreciate what you're doing and really love the fact that you're putting it out there.
Can I just
No,
say, if you don't,
yeah,
it's, I, every time I do podcasts and I speak to men, whether it's my podcast or having the benefit of speaking to other men, something always hits with me. When we help men and we're able to kind of, the cheat code, like you say, and we can kind of get you there a lot faster. To me, it's reminiscent of what I want as a father, but I can't do it. I got a 20-year-old son. I've got 3 daughters, an 18-year-old daughter, a 14-year-old daughter, and a 9-year-old daughter. And you know how much easier it would be to tell my 20-year-old son, listen, don't do that. And here's why. But I can't. He's got to fail. He's got to make mistakes. He's got to deal with the repercussions of life. And as much as I'd like to just say, hey, no, this is it. And I do that a lot with the men that I coach and talk to, but I can't do that with my son because I can't just tell him this is it. I've got him and I'll say it. He won't listen. It'll happen. And then we can talk about it afterwards. So if I could do that, and it just occurred to me now, wow, you know how much easier fatherhood would be? Son, you think she likes you. I'm not sure she does. But I kind of love her. Oh, okay. First heartbreak. These things that kind of have to happen. And it's this convergence of life, being a father and being a coach. And as a father, I'm a coach. And as a coach, I can be a father. But, all these things kind of connect and we deal with them. It's just something that came to mind. I wanted to say it before, left me. But
I totally get it. And I look back, man, Harvey, there were people that tried telling me stuff, especially when it was my parents. I was like, whatever. It fell on deaf ears. And, for a certain percentage, probably 98%, that's the same thing with my son. But it's like, I can't fault him because it's like, well, hey, I've given you my perspective. You're a grown man. You get to make the decision for yourself based off of what you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you've heard, what you think you can accomplish. And yeah, I get the whole thing of like, man, if I could only do that within my own house. And I've had my son tell me, look, I don't need to be coached. I'm not looking to be coached. Okay, cool. I will be here to walk through this with you.
Yeah.
And I know it's not ideal for you and I, Harvey, because we're like, hey, we want to see our sons helped out. But dude, when I look back, and I'm sure this would be the same for you, like when you look back and you're like, I would love to have had my parents walk through stuff, supporting me as best they could. And so I know it's not in the way and the level we'd like, but there's still power there in how you're showing up, man. I mean, you're not passing on the same things that you experienced, right? So you've broken those patterns. And I think that's our wish as dads is, I don't want to repeat the same mistakes that my parents made. And for a large percentage of my kids' lives, Harvey, I did exactly that to the T, and probably threw in some extra spiciness along the way as well. So it was, taken up a bit, but, dude, hats off to you that it's like, you've changed personally and you're showing up for your children as best you can in the ways that they need, man.
Definitely.
Well, so we know you've got 4 kids. What does the rest of like personal life look like for you?
So several years ago, my wife and I, we were both working and we're out and about living life, taking care of our kids. Financially, we were good. And as I guess it was good because financially we're taken care of. The kids are in school, they're fed, they've got toys and the games and the stuff that they love. What they were missing was us. They weren't getting raised. They were being taken care of, and there is a difference. So one day I went to work and they said, hey, Harvey, we don't really want you to come back ever again. So I got fired. So now I'm home and my mother-in-law she had retired and, she'd get to relax. But being that we weren't home, she was essentially raising our kids for a while. What happened is now I no longer have a job. So now I'm home. I'm like, you can go back. I'll take care of it. And that became, okay, until I find something new, I'm taking them to the bus stop. I'm taking them to school. I'm taking them to soccer. I'm taking the girls to ballet. I'm taking them to the skating rink, all this stuff. And that went longer and longer until I'm like, I think I found my job. This is what I should be doing. And it's been, I can't count how many years, but this is what I do. And I tell a lot of men who I speak to, because fatherhood's a big thing when I talk to men, and that you really need to be your own person. We can't be wrapped up in what we do. You got to be who you are, type of thing. But I am wrapped up in my kids. That's what I do personally, is I take pride in sending out great citizens into the world, great people. My son is opening the door for whatever woman he may see, and not because it's his mom or his sisters. It's because he's a gentleman. I send my girls out into the world and they're respectful because they're just good people. I pride myself personally at being a good person, because when I'm good, 9 times out of 10, my agents, which are my kids, are going to be good into the world too. I'm sending myself out in just different forms. And my kids, people meet my kids, they're so well behaved, they're so respectful. I'm like, thank you. That's not what they're like in the house. But when they leave, they're awesome. I'm like, thank you, but come stay with us for a few hours. And those aren't the same people. But personally, I am here to take care of my kids, to support my wife, because we are the antithesis of what the couple is supposed to be. My wife is out there making the money and I'm taking care of the house. I'm here to make sure kids are fed, their homework is done, and when she comes home, chill environment. And I take pride in that. I take pride in being a parent. And I can be a good parent, but I'm also happily Harvey. I'm content with what I do. So I podcast because I like talking. Obviously, I like talking. All this stuff. I do all these things. So personally, I'm happy. I could be happier, and I think we all can be. I pride myself in being a good spouse. I could be better. I know we all could be. It's just, I like helping my kids. I like helping my wife. I like helping people, and I like helping me. So personally, I'm in a place where I want to leave the best impression whenever I leave this earth, that whoever met me, they were happy to talk to me. Even if maybe I didn't let them talk, because, like I said, I'll keep talking. But it's personally, I'm just happy with being the best person I can be and extending that to my kids and my family around me.
So being kind of like that antithesis of, like, stay-at-home mom, dad's out working,
Mm-hmm.
you're the stay-at-home dad.
Mm-hmm.
You're not the first one, you're not the only one, but I would imagine that it's like, hey, as a stay-at-home dad, there are certain hurdles and challenges that when it's like, hey, what do you do? And you're like, hey, I take care of my 4 kids and I'm proud of it. Like, what are some of the hurdles that as a stay-at-home dad, you face, that it's like, now you're kind of like, it just rolls off you. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But that societally, a stay-at-home dad is going to face. What are some challenges that go with that?
I am Caribbean. My parents are Haitian. So I grew up here. When it's a patriarchal society or a patriarchal culture, the mere mention of me not going to work per se was something that people still haven't gotten over. Like, mom should be at home, making dinner, taking care of the kids, and doing all that. Why are you home? When are you going to go to work? This is what I do. And I am at work. I am taking care of my kids. Now, I don't consider it my profession, but maybe it's more my calling. So the first hurdle I had to deal with was being that stay-at-home dad and dealing with family who questioned why I was doing this. I was never a fan of like daycare and stuff like that. I don't like someone else taking care of my kids. They're my kids. I should be doing it, or my wife should be doing it. So I think subconsciously, when it came time for somebody to take care of the kids and I was home, I'm like, okay, I can do this. The hurdles were, okay, Now it's on me primarily. And it took me a little while to get used to that because it was kind of hell. But once me and my wife determined, okay, I'm staying home, I'm not going to work. And she's like, I can focus on this. And then we started our own business together and we're doing all this. Now a lot of it is on me. And especially when you're a girl dad, and I've got 3. That might be a hurdle that I will never get over. Every time I think I'm about to jump, somebody raises it a few inches and I just hit my head on that thing and fall down again. I can relate only so much to my girls. Only so much. I learn every day.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I'd like to be the teacher to my kids, they teach me so much more than I could possibly teach them. So what I learn, the hurdles are staying with my girls, being respectful of my girls, and doing my best to raise them the same I raised my son, but I can be honest. I can do my best to be the dad to all 4 of them. Never. I can't even do it. And it's not bad. I'm not trying to be negative towards my girls, but they're my girls. There's a difference. Being home with my kids continuously now. One hurdle that I had to deal with. I didn't grow up with the most intimate relationship with my father. And when I mean that, I mean my dad wasn't the type to come over and hug me or kiss me give me a kiss on the forehead or whatever. I love you, that type of thing. With daughters, it just kind of happens. It just feels like that's the way it's supposed to be, right? With my son, who is the most huggy, and he's bigger than me. He's like 6'2". I'm a burly 5'5". So when he comes, so he'll come and hug me, and it's like, yeah, good hug. But he likes hugs. So he'll stay in there. And at first it's like I'm hugging him, but then it's like, okay, he's still here. And he really likes it. He loves that level of intimacy that a father and son can have. And if it was one of my daughters, I'm like, great, I'm just hugging her. And that's just the way it should be. For my son, it's a little bit different. And as men, we're not really brought up to have that kind of relationship with our sons. So that's a personal hurdle that I'm working with, that I'm getting better at. But it's always like, I always feel like I pull back a little bit. But I shouldn't. Just hug him. He's 20 and he's big, but that's my boy. No matter how big they get, no matter how big these kids get, that's my boy. And, I want to hug him if he's having a bad day or a tough day at work, or he likes somebody, or she didn't like her back, or, that type of thing. So I'm working on that kind of relationship with my son. I'm working on having a better relationship with my daughters. I am working on having a better relationship with everyone in my house. The relationship with my spouse, with my wife. And the one thing I'm perfected is a strong word. One thing I'm happy with is what my kids see in terms of their parents, in that relationship. I have 3 daughters who eventually go out into the world and find their own partner and their own spouse, and they know what to expect. My daughters know what a good relationship looks like. We argue, we don't fight. We may disagree, but we don't battle it out. No hands come up or anything. My girls know that they know how to argue. Let's say that. They know how to deal with conflict. They know how to deal with a disagreement. My son knows that he's seen me disagree with his mom, but at the end of the day, it's just talks. That's as far as it goes. So my battles are being a good representation of a man for my girls. And one part of that is recognizing that I'm not perfect. And when I mess up, apologize to them and saying it. I messed up. I'm sorry. I did this. You were right. I was wrong. This type of stuff. And that allows them to have empathy for me. And that allows them to be like, yo, my dad isn't perfect. I can mess up too. I do that for my son. I try to be perfect, but sometimes I'm going to mess up. I might jump the gun, whatever. Dude, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that. This is why I did it. I'll do my best not to do it again. And he can see like, you know what? He messed up and he manned up and he said it. I can mess up too. Kids who see their parents as imperfect know that they are loved because they are respected, because you're honest. I'm a man. I'm not perfect. I'm not a deity. I'm a human being, and I got up. I had a bad day, and I can admit it. That's my hurdle, is that in the end, I think I'm raising good people, and I think me and my wife are doing it great together. But when I mess up and I allow them to hear it, I think I'm proudest of that, but know that I can get better every day. So my hurdle is just being good every day. And when I'm not, telling them about it.
Yeah. I think that kind of honesty is actually strengthening our children because, if you were that deity, right, you were perfect, that bar of perfection is then what they're expected to live up to.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be daunting and disempowering. Whereas if it's, hey, I saw mom and dad, they had disagreements, but they weren't going, toe to toe doing fisticuffs, dragging out that battle there. They can see that, hey, mom and dad did their best. They weren't perfect. Okay, let me bring my best to the table. Let me bring my A game and know that when I do fall short, I know how to make amends for it. I know how to apologize and repair, what wasn't, so to speak, perfect in how they showed up. So I think the imperfection is actually the stronger suit that you're bringing there, man. I do want to kind of go back to what your journey was, Harvey, because it's like home life was rough, man. I mean, there were challenges there. Those patterns that were set and shown for you were very different from what you and your wife are doing for your children. And you even at one point had to pick, hey, which parent do I go with? I mean, that's a lot to be in that situation and then to be asked to make that decision. That's a lot. And too often, I don't think that there's actually that conversation of, hey, this experience then impacted you as an adult, right? In how you see things, the beliefs, and how those actions come out from that. When you look back at that journey, Harvey, and then as you became more self aware, how do you see that those things showed up and directed like your beliefs and your actions that you then consciously chose to go a different route to become the man and the dad that you are now?
When I started the podcast, Men Are the Prize, I would talk to men, and then this pattern started coming up. And a lot of times I asked men what their purpose is. And a lot of times their purpose really connected to what they were missing when they were growing up. So I would talk to a man, and he was a social worker. What was your life like when you were growing up? Oh my God, my parents fought. My dad was abusive, blah, 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 whatever. Or this guy's an attorney. What was your life like growing up? My God, my parents got divorced. My mom cheated on my dad, and my dad couldn't afford an attorney to fight, blah, 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 whatever. And then he didn't get custody, blah, blah, blah. We become what we needed growing up. That is essentially what I am now. I am the father I did not have, literally. And it makes me sad when I think about it. I am the opposite of the father I had growing up. So this intimacy with my kids, I didn't really get that. So I go really hard at that. I didn't have anybody to talk to about things going on. I do my best to really do that, which is probably why I won't shut up now. My kids will tell you the same thing. Gee, he's still talking. We got it. Okay, put the garbage out, but then I'll give him an explanation of why. It's all this extra. Specifically because of the relationship I had with my parents. It took a while that I really focus on being that. Growing up, I think I've mentioned it to you that I grew up in a household. It's just my parents and me, and it was volatile and it was violent. It was just toxic in every way. This is not the way I wanted to live. I survived it. I got through it. I was never going to put a child through that. To be honest, after living with that, I had no intention of getting married ever. I didn't see a positive marriage work. My parents did not need to be together. They got married, obviously, got divorced. They both remarried and they both got divorced again. That kind of cleared it up for me. I'm not marrying anybody. It's not working. Why would I do that? So all of that went to hell. I happened to see this woman while I was at work. It's my wife. I talked big until I saw her. And then I'm like, oh God, I have to marry her. But for me, just growing up in a household where I didn't feel comfortable, where at times I was just kind of fearful of my life and mom, and I didn't have anybody to tell. I didn't have anybody to talk to about how I was feeling about things. So the divorce happened and I go to court and I'm 10 or 11 and my parents had pretty much decided they were going to get divorced. So there was a year of just kind of uncertainty with them. And sadly, that's when my dad decided to become a really good father. So I'm easily malleable because I'm 10 or 11 years old. So now we're going to the movies. We're getting ice cream. We're doing all this stuff so that when I go to court and I'm like, and the judge, why he's asking me, I have no idea. Who do you want to live with? In my head, because I'm a kid, I'm like, oh my God, I want to live with the parent that's going to let me, we're going to have fun. We're going to do stuff together. When that's not the real parent that he was. That's just the part he played to get what he wanted, which was just something to hurt my mom. And that's just take me from her type of thing. So that was hard. And that's something kind of that always reminded me. And it took me years to realize how much it truly affected me in terms of relationships, in terms of self-esteem, because once I lived with him and I decided and I said I wanted to live with my dad, and then I didn't have that guy growing up. I was very much by myself. I raised myself. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't have a confidant when stuff wasn't working out for me. You know, baseball is my favorite sport in the world. I love baseball. I'm not particularly good at it, but I love it. So every year when I went out for the team and didn't make it, there was nobody to say, I tried. I thought I could be a first baseman. I want to be like Keith Hernandez when I, grow up, because I'm a Mets fan, grew up in New York, and none of this stuff, worked out. I didn't have it. So I'm just all this stuff that's sitting here, all the stuff that I went through is just sitting here and it's boiling, bubbling up. So I don't feel really confident in many things. We're boys, we're growing up, see a girl that you like, blah, 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 see what happens. That never seemed to work out. It took me a while to get there. I didn't have anybody to talk to about that. All these things bubbling up. Then I go to college and I don't understand the baggage that I'm bringing with me to college, aside from life and all the boxes with all my stuff. And I bring that all to college. I go to college, fail out. I'm a mess. I come back home. I am now a failure in this house. And I'm in this house for a while. I live with my dad who, and I mean this, cannot look at me. He is so disgusted, so disappointed. So I'm in a house where I am just this afterthought. I'm just a sideshow, a disappointment. And after a while, with every day, with every look away, with every disgusted comment, I'm just like, I'm a terrible person. I don't need to be here. I don't need to be here. Nobody would care if I wasn't here. What am I going to do here? I'm like, I'm going to just try. And I tried to kill myself. And I got there and I tried. And when I talk to a lot of men, when I start coaching them, I tell them my story. The only way I feel to be completely open with somebody is to tell them what I went through. And then I will show them, and you can't see it, but I have a scar on my wrist where I tried. And obviously I failed, but I actually won with that. And I got to the point where I was so low that I almost ended it. The lowest point of my life. And then every day since has gotten better. But what am I doing here? And I really tried. And I didn't realize that the sadness from sitting in that courtroom, from listening to the fights, from seeing when the police came to the house, from hearing mom scream, from hearing my dad scream, from all this junk. And I really went through so much that I got past that. And every kid of divorce kind of feels like they're the reason something happened. So in my head, maybe I'm the reason they got divorced. Maybe I was a bad kid and this happened. So growing up in that toxic environment, then moving into a different toxic environment, then leaving the house and going into the world, but not really being prepared for it. Then going back into that toxic environment and then just being pulled down emotionally to just wanting to end it because I have no value in this world, to surviving that and then realizing that there's only one person in this world who's going to save me from this. And that's me. I got to do it. Every day I felt a little bit better about myself. That 1 year in college does not define me as a person. It was just a time in school and I just wasn't ready. And every day I got a little bit better. I got a little bit better. I got a little bit better. And what I needed to do was kind of think back to what happened in the past. Life was tough. And it was tough. It wasn't tough. It was life. But I didn't have anybody to talk to about it, so it felt tough. If I had a voice, if I had an ear, it would have been so much easier. But once I realized that I would have been in a much better place if I could have just talked to somebody, if I could have just released, I've been in a much better place, which is what affects me the most with my kids, with my wife, and with the men that I coach. Tell me what's going on. I'm not trying to fix you. I don't have this 10-point plan. If I do, it's really 1 point. Tell me what's going on. And then we'll work through that, because that's what I did. I had to work through my stuff. And I'm better for it.
How did you go about working through it? I mean, there's nobody coaching you or guiding you through it. You're figuring out on your own. So you come to like this awareness of, here's all the problems. It's gotten this bad, but I have hope. How did you make that change, that direction? Instead of going down, your life is now going up.
I wanted to be here. I think in the end that's the first step, is that there's got to be a reason for you to either get help or to help yourself. I wanted to be on this earth. I wanted to live. I didn't want to just survive. I wanted to live life. So I had a basis. I want to be here. Okay, so what am I going to do to stay? And I think like the day after, because I've talked to men about this, like the days before I tried to kill myself versus the day after are important days for me, because I was low, low, low. And then the next day I was a little bit higher. But the really important part is that I didn't want to get there again. So I was not going to let myself get to that lower point. How do I stay away from that? Okay. Went to college, failed out. Okay. Why? Okay. Life kind of sucked for you growing up, but let's just be honest here. You went to college and you had way too much fun. Way too much fun. Having to sit there and metaphorically look yourself in the mirror and say, you had a big hand in what happened. And life was tough, but I let it get the best of me and I enjoyed my life a lot. And that's the reason why things didn't work out. So I'm like, okay, this was me. I have to think about this. What could I have done better? Could have gone to class more. I could have studied more. I could have went to the library instead of that frat party. I could have done all this. I could have done all these things. And that's what I did. I started really looking into myself. And I recognized what happened to me, but I kind of got past the point of kind of blaming my struggles for my previous struggles. And I realized, okay, what we went through younger sucks and it'll kind of always be there, but we can get past it, right? I don't have to let that define me, right? Yes, Harvey, you don't have to. So what are we going to do? Okay, now I know. I'm a smart guy. I'm going to go back to school and I'm going to do something with myself. And it took me a while. I had to recreate value for myself. I am worth I am worth going to school, educating myself, becoming a good part of this world, and being a good citizen, being somebody that somebody else likes. I had to decide for myself that this person may not like me. I may not have anybody to talk to. So until I find those people, I have to talk to myself. I have to be my own voice. I have to listen. I have to be the shoulder I cry. I have to be me. And that doesn't work if I don't like who I am. So I have to find the attributes so that I can be better. So I really decided, okay, I failed there. It sucks. Don't let that define me. That's not what I am. That's just what I was. That's not the person that I am. The person that I am is empathetic, is loving, is intelligent, is driven, loves people around him, loves family. And I got better and better. With school, I finally did better. Met people, finally did better. Realized that I'm a good person, finally got better. I had to get away from that house, had to get away from people. And then I wrote stuff too. I would do a little journaling to agree, because I could just get stuff out. And a good thing when I talk to men, that journaling thing, it's good to just get stuff out. You find out a lot about yourself when you don't think, when you just write. Like when we send kids to school and they're a literature teacher, just write, just free write. You never know what comes out until you just do it. And I would just write it out. I'm like, oh God, that's what I thought. That's what he thought I thought about myself. Or there would be good things. Oh, that's what I want to do. that's the guy I want to be. It was acknowledging my mistakes, acknowledging my past, but recognizing that I'm going to be so much more than than the bad situation in college or the really bad situation with life growing up. I can be better. And it was a decision. I had to push myself to be there. And it took a while. And to be honest, it is still a work in progress. I am always trying to be better. And now I just have more people I'm trying to be better for. But at the top of that list, I want to be better for me.
Yeah. That is a key and pivotal, like, understanding, is that it's like, yes, you can be better for everybody, but it's like, it's got to start with me. I've got to be the first one, and I'm doing it for me. Otherwise, it's just, you're showing up for other people and still not true to yourself.
Exactly.
So how did you learn to then show up how you do now in communicating honestly and genuinely with other men when that wasn't something that you had in any shape or form growing up? How did you then begin engaging in the conversation of saying, hey, this is where I'm at. I'm struggling. I'm hurt. I'm really confused. I don't understand this. How did the communication with other guys start for you?
So, like you mentioned, we started with Love is Black, and I enjoyed that podcast, and I still love doing it. The first season was just me and my wife just talking about our relationship. The second season, we brought couples in. And the reason the podcast is called Love is Black is because we wanted a podcast. We wanted to show Black love in its purest form. We love each other, and Black love isn't always portrayed in the best way. So we wanted to make sure that you see a couple who love each other. So we would get couples on, and a lot of the times husbands would be like, all right, so how do you do this? And I'd be giving advice and talking stuff, and inadvertently was kind of becoming this guy, not really knowing I was doing it. I'm a little bit older. I guess I'm wiser. I have some experience. I've gone through some stuff. So that's what it led to, because then even after that, I was still keeping contact with the husbands that I would speak to. And they weren't all husbands. Sometimes they were just, maybe just life partners or boyfriends, whatever. And I would still talk to these guys. We had this argument and whatever, and I'm not sure what's going on with life. And I don't know if I can still do this. And I'm talking, and I'd be giving them like, you married this person. Is she worth you sticking it out? And I would give this advice, and we would still talk, and we would keep. And that kind of led me to, you know what? I think I can do this for other men. And it's not just relationships. It's life. So let's just start. And I got into this point where I felt so good about where I was that I can relate to men who are coming from where I was. So it's a combination. I'm kind of doing it with these men off of the Love is Black podcast, and friends who would ask me for advice. And this realization that I can really help men because we don't have a lot of help. And we men attempt suicide at a far higher rate than women do. And we're not going to ask for help. I'm not going to go to the doctor if I may have a heart issue and I'll never know. I may be a diabetic and I'll never know. We do not take care of ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally. And I'm like, I can help men. I can do it. And it all converged. The men from the podcast, me recognizing where I was, and just friends asking, people like, oh, well, how long have you been doing this coaching thing? I'm like, I haven't been coaching anybody. Maybe I should, after a few people said it. So it was, I feel maybe by accident, but it was a good one.
Yeah. And like you said, man, Harvey, if you look at statistics, we as men don't show up as much as women do for depression, right? We're not there talking and saying, hey, I am depressed. But man, when it comes to suicide, we're 4 times higher. I mean, that's not like a few percentage points. That is a whole nother level where, just like, you've been talking about, we don't feel like we have anybody to talk about. And kind of, if we do share it, what's the perception going to be? So I just need to suck it up, be quiet. What's my option? And a lot of men just see it as, hey, I don't need to be here anymore. Nobody will miss me. I bring no value. And that is not true in the least. but we get to that point of desperation. And rather than going and talking about it, we feel like, I need to make this ultimate decision. So, yeah, it's just astronomically different for men. Well, dude, Harvey, we're kind of at that point and need to wrap it up. I want to make sure we leave this conversation with ensuring that guys can connect with you outside of this podcast. So how can men reach out to you, man?
So the first thing I would say is, if you want to reach me, I would say go to my website. That's harveylaguerre.com. So it's my name. It's on the screen. Harvey Laguerre, HarveyLaguerre.com. You'll find the podcast. All my social media is there. My email address is there. If you want to talk to me, go to my website. For the podcast, HarveyLaguerre.com. If you want to talk about, are we looking for potential coaching opportunities for me to help you? I have a website that's called InspireThePrize.com. That's my coaching side. We'll schedule a time. There's no cost for that. And we'll talk. It's a brutally honest conversation. And if I can help you, I'll let you know what I do, how it's going to work. At that point, we're just talking. And sometimes that's what we need as men. Sometimes I just need to say it. Sometimes it's not a problem. I just needed to get out how I was feeling. And sometimes it is a problem, and sometimes we need to deal with it. So to reach me, to reach the podcast, HarveyLaguerre.com, to get me and we can get to some coaching is Inspire the Prize. Otherwise, I'm on Facebook or whatever, and we can talk baseball. Or we can talk. I love wrestling. We can talk. I have a whole this separate side too. I love all this other stuff. But if you want to get to me, I would say go to HarveyLaguerre.com first, and then we'll work off of that.
Cool. And we'll put links in the show notes as well, Harvey. I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you very much for joining me, sharing your journey and the insight, and dude, the transformation and the key foundation that it's like we need to work on ourselves for ourselves first and foremost. So Harvey, thank you very much, my friend.
I talk to men when I end my podcast, and I'd like to do it with you if that's okay. And this is the message I leave every podcast with. We talked about suicide and how absolutely ridiculous how many men attempt suicide. And I end my podcast with this, that it's a reminder to every man out there. Life is difficult. Life is hard. It challenges us, the weight of the world on our shoulders. But I want to let you know that this world is better because you're here. A lot of men don't recognize it. I tell you, you know what? There's somebody who's waiting to talk to you today. Somebody who's waiting for that phone call. They know you're calling and they had a bad day, and you're going to call them and they're going to laugh. They're going to debate with you. They're going to argue with you, but you're making their day. Or there's somebody waiting for you to walk into a room. Maybe it's work, maybe it's supermarket, maybe it's the gym. You affect somebody and you don't even know that you do it. You are so important in this world. Your value, your presence is a present to so many people. So you can't go. Life can suck, and sometimes it may seem easier to leave, but we need you. You cannot go. If you're there, find me, find Mike, find somebody, because this world is better when you're in it. We need every man we can get. And I don't know you, to the listener or the watcher, but I guarantee you, you bring something to this world that is necessary. So don't make that decision. Make the right decision to stay with us, because you are an amazing man. You are a wonderful man, and you are the prize. Thanks, Mike.
Oh, thank you, Harvey. That is 100% true and super powerful. So I look forward to hearing stories of how this resonates with men and encourages them to fight another day, fight another hour, fight another minute. Thank you, Harvey.
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks so much, my friend, for joining me on another episode. If you found the information within the show helpful, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to. It helps raise the show's visibility so other men can join us in breaking free. See you on the next episode, and remember to continue putting yourself out there. Have a great one.